everyone, and welcome back to Letting Go of Her podcast. First of all, I want to say hello to all of my new listeners. I my last episode kind of like boomed a little bit, and I don't know who you are, but I can see my numbers kind of went up a little bit. So I want to say hello to everyone who is new. Welcome to the Letting Go of Her podcast. If you want to get to know a little bit more about me, I did have my very first episode called Get to Know Your Host. But honestly, just to give you a little synopsis of what this podcast is about, is me sharing all of my personal convictions, me sharing where I fall short, me sharing where I'm struggling, what I'm struggling with, questions that I might have. And honestly, just taking it all back to the Lord, or at least I hope that that is the way that people see this or people understand this, that no matter what it is that I'm going through, I just hand it off and give it to the Lord, because I am only human and I can't deal with everything life throws at me. But with God, we can, right? So that's just a little bit about what to expect on these episodes. And I try and talk about a wide variety of things, but mainly I kind of talk about what I've been dealing with that week. I don't really, let's say, I don't really plan these episodes. I do have like a list on my phone of like, okay, things that I could potentially talk about. But I feel that like every time I get to one of those topics, I'll record an episode and then something happens where I'm like, no, I really need to share this, right? That's the wonderful, beautiful thing about the Holy Spirit. He's always like, no, that you're not talking about that. You're going to talk about this today. So I actually had something happen to me yesterday that I felt the need to share, because this is something that I have been struggling with for a really long time, honestly. And I feel that it's a struggle that a lot of us deal with. And it just kind of hit me, and it kind of, it just hit me. And I was like, okay, wait, no, it's not as complicated as we make it seem. It's actually kind of quite simple. So I'll just get into it. There's a really famous book by, I don't know their last name Carnegie, about like how to make friends and influence people or something. It was like written in like the 1800s, I believe it is. But it's a really famous book on basically how to make friends, right? And I started reading this book maybe a year and a half ago, because I was really struggling with making friends. If you heard my testimony, you know how that all went, right? The Lord gave me panic attacks, which forced me to make friends. But prior to that, I really wanted to make friends, and I didn't really know how. I've always considered myself like an introvert, and I do deal with the social anxiety aspect of it, as I'm sure many of us do. And it's really hard for me to open up, and it's really hard for me to talk, because I think people think I'm stupid, and I think that people don't want to hear what I have to say, and I feel that people are like, who does she think she is, right? Those are just the thoughts of the enemy likes to constantly repeat in my brain. So I was like, I don't know how to make friends, right? And I really wanted friends. I really knew that I needed friends. I know that in this life, we're not meant to do life alone, right? We're supposed to do that with God, first off, but also with his people. And I didn't know how to open myself up. And I want to say that I specifically struggled more with making like Christian friends, because I never felt that I was a good enough Christian, right? And I felt that if I showed the true me, that people would be like, oh man, this chick, she's a phony, right? Like, she doesn't truly love Jesus. She doesn't truly follow Jesus. Um, it was because like, well, I don't know enough about the Bible, and I don't memorize scripture, and I don't this, and I don't do that, right? But all of that went out the door when I started having panic attacks. um, so anyways, I started reading this book like a year and a half before all these shenanigans happened. And I stopped reading it maybe a couple chapters in, because it it basically, what it said was that people are selfish. People just like to talk about themselves. So in order to make friends, you just have to keep the conversation about them and never about you. And to me, it was like, okay, like I get that. Like I get that to a certain extent, but then like what about me? Like what about when I want to talk about something? Am I just supposed to let them talk and talk and talk? And I guess like realistically, if you're both doing the same quote unquote technique, then like eventually the conversation will get to you. But it basically just said that like people are just dumb and people just want to talk about themselves and feel good about themselves, right? And for you to just constantly keep like praising and complimenting and all this stuff. And I was like, yeah, no, that just seems like a form of manipulation to me. So I stopped reading it and yeah, didn't really go back to it. Then I started reading a Christian based book called Find Your People by Jenny Allen, which was really 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 great. Um, and she talks about how to find your people within your church community, and that I learned a lot from. Basically, what she says in her entire book is you need to be vulnerable, you need to open up, you need to let people see your messes, and that was something that I struggled with. I still kind of struggle with it a lot. Um, but that was something where I was like, no, like I can't show people where I'm struggling. I can't show people where I'm failing. I can't show people where, things that I need to work on. But in order to make true connections with people, you need to be able to show them your messes. I remember she like said a story about this one time. It was like late. She was like, I was in my robe, like no makeup. My husband and I were watching TV. She's like, and then some friends showed up at our door. She's like, and they came to drop something off, but they walked in. She was like, and I was so embarrassed because my house was a mess. She's like, I didn't look presentable. She's like, and they had just come from like, I think they had done like a family photo shoot. So like they were like dressed to the nines and makeup, hair, everything done. She's like, and I just felt so like so exposed, right? She's like, but then they came out to our porch and they sat down and they started talking, and I was like, all right, I guess we're doing this.
And she said that this family became like their closest friends. The ones that they were able to go over whenever, doesn't matter what you look like, doesn't matter what your house looked like. The ones that they shared their ups and their downs, all of their struggles, the family that they were able to get down on their knees and pray and cry with. Um, and it was a really just kind of inspiring story. Like I remember reading that and being like, oh, I want that, right? Like I want friends like that. Like I want a family like that. Like friends that I can just be myself with, right? But I think that even still, just as Christians and specifically as Christians, we struggle with like pulling or putting all of our walls down, right? Because we do at times want to be seen as the quote unquote perfect Christian. Um, but the reality of it is that there is no such thing as a perfect Christian other than Jesus. And even Jesus showed his emotions. Even Jesus, he wept. He showed his anger. He was open and honest with all of his friends, and he was able to call them out on things, right? And he was the ultimate friend, right? Like what a friend we have in Jesus. Um and it was just a beautiful story to read and an inspiring story of like, okay, well, I pray that one day I can have friends like this. But recently I started reading another book. This one is called How to Talk to Anyone, and it says 92 Little Tricks for Big Success in Relationships, right? And this is by Leo Lonel. Leo Lonel. I don't know how to say their name. Um, but this one gives you little tips and tricks on like how to talk to people, right? Like how to keep the conversation going, how to start small talk, how to have people find interest in you, and how to you find interest in other people. And it talks about like eye contact and your posture and your smile and all of these things, right? Like how to make yourself attractive or appealing, right? It's not necessarily relationships like romantic relationships. It's just like building a friendship, like relationships, right? So I've been reading this book and I've been finding it pretty interesting, right? Because I'm like, oh man, I definitely don't give great eye contact, right? Or I definitely don't have the best posture, right? And I was like, well, no wonder no one talks to me. No wonder no one likes me, right? Those are the thoughts that are running through my head. Um, and so I'm reading this book, right? And I'm like, okay, I'm going to save this tip and put it in my back pocket for whenever I need it. And yesterday I went to the eye doctor, just for like, a normal checkup. And I needed new glasses because I've had these for 2 years. My insurance only covers new glasses every 2 years. And I needed new glasses because these ones are just scratched. Even though I got the anti-scratch guard, whatever, and they're scratched like right in the middle, like right where my eyes are. Like, I don't mind if they're scratched on the side or in the corners, but no, it's like right in the middle, right where my eyes are. And sometimes I'll admit it gives me anxiety because I'll be looking at something and then like something will kind of look blurry and I'm just like, like, why am I seeing blurry? What is going on? But really it's just the scratches and like the angle that I'm looking at things and like the lighting, right? And yeah, it trips me out. But so, okay, I was done with the eye doctor and then he sent me on my way to go to the person who helps you pick out the glasses and price them out and whatever and whatnot. So I got called from this lady and I saw her from afar and I was like, okay, perfect, And I was like, let me try these skills, these tricks that I'm learning in this book. Let's see if they work, right? And so I go there with like I had tried to, stand up straight, nice posture, and I go and a big smile on my face, and I'm trying to make small talk with her, and she was just not having it. Like, it's like almost 6 p.m. I'm sure she's tired. I'm sure she's been dealing with people all day long, like, and the last thing she wants is this like bubbly kind of person. And I'm not like, I am not a bubbly person. I am not a small talk person. I am just I'm going to get in, get what I need and get out kind of person. But I was like, no, I need to be different, right? And so I'm going and I'm trying to make little jokes over like the glasses and all this stuff. And she just like wasn't having it. And I was like, okay, let me just give it a break for a second. Right. And so we go and we sit down and I'm like trying on the glasses. And so then I start like asking her questions. And I was like, okay, well, I like these and I like these, but like, I really just want to know, like, how much is this going to cost me, right? Because I need to know if it's like within my budget and like, because I wanted to get prescription sunglasses also. And I know that my insurance doesn't cover those. So I was like, I need to know, like, how much money am I going to be spending over the ones that I truly like? And then if not, I'll have to settle with some that I kind of like that are cheaper that I can afford, right? And so she's like on her computer and she's like, putting in all the numbers and all the stuff. And then I was like, I'm so sorry. I was like, I don't mean to make your job a lot more difficult. And she was like, no, she was like, it's fine. She's like, you're getting like down to the point, right? You want to know like how much money you're going to be spending, right? And after that, she started to just kind of, I don't want to say open up, but she started to be more receptive to my conversation, right? And so I'm like trying on these glasses and I was like, I don't know if these look good and do these look good? And you know, and then I was like making jokes and I was like, yeah, but then I'm gonna look like this and that. And so she's like slowly starting to laugh and just kind of like break down that like stern wall that she had. Um and then by the end of my little appointment with her, we ended up being like besties. Like, she was laughing and making jokes, and I was laughing and making jokes. And she left or I left, and I was like, have a great night, like, whatever. And so I walked off to go pay, and I ended up paying. I think she bamboozled me at the same time because I ended up paying way more than I wanted to. But I did end up getting the glasses that I wanted, so that's a plus. And my birthday's coming up, so my husband was like, "Just get what you need, and happy birthday." So that's gonna be his excuse to not get me a birthday present. But as I was like driving home, I was like, "Wow!" Like I, I was trying so hard to like do all these tips and tricks that I've been reading in this book on like keep the eye contact and keep it about them, and do all this, they call it sticky eyes and do all these like different stuff, right? And none of it was really truly like working. But it wasn't until I said like I'm sorry for making your job harder that she finally like kind of put her walls down and she was more receptive to what I was saying and to my jokes and laughing. And I think like at the end of the day what I realized was that people just want to be seen and heard. Like, this person probably had a long day, it's 6 o'clock. So I'm going to assume it's maybe towards the end of her shift because I think they close at like 7 or 8, maybe, right? Probably dealt with people all day. And like, let's be real, people are rude. Especially like at doctor's office. Like, people are impatient People want their stuff fast, and then people get angry because of insurance purposes or whatever, people just want to get in and get out, but that's not the way that it works. And so maybe she dealt with, bad patients all day. I don't know. Um, but me just saying like I'm sorry, I don't mean to make your job harder, it really seemed to have like melted something inside of her. And she really just opened up at that point, right? At that point, she gave me quote unquote better customer service, if you would say. Not that she was doing a bad job before, but it made the appointment a lot more enjoyable that way. And as I was driving, like I said, I just came to the conclusion that like people just want to be seen and they want to be heard. Um, And, when I was making the jokes, the first set of jokes, I was just selfishly making it about myself. Like, oh, these are going to make me look like this and these are going to make me look like that. Right. And she didn't really care. But it wasn't until I turned it to her and I was like, you know what? I don't want to make your job any harder than it already is, I'm sure. Where she finally was like, no, it's okay. Right. Like you're doing what you should be doing. Right. You're asking what you should be asking. And we had good conversations and she was laughing and then finally, like I said, she bamboozled me into buying the more expensive ones and I walked off with my, pretty hefty bill. But um I just I think that with these books, right? So the Carnegie book on like how to win friends and influence people and this one on like how to talk to anyone, right? Like I think that they just overcomplicate things, right? Because as I was thinking of like make the eye contact, do hold my pressure right, or sorry, my posture right, and all these different things, I was not focusing on the person. I was focusing on myself, and I was being selfish. Um, but when I just like dropped all of that and talked to her about it, um, then that's when it changed the conversation. That's when it changed her whole like persona, right? And she turned into like a whole different, more opening kind of person. Um, and it just like reminded me of how we keep our walls up and we keep our walls up a lot, even towards Jesus. Um, he just wants us to drop them down and he just wants us to melt in his presence, right? He doesn't want us to pretend this and to pretend that. He wants the real us. He knows the real us. But we still think that we can trick him, right? Like we still think that we can be like, no, it's okay. No, it's all fine, right? But when really we are not okay and we're not fine. But Jesus is the ultimate friend. He's the one that we can truly open to, the one that we can truly go and ask all the questions and give all the doubts and all the fears, all the anxieties, all of everything. And he's the only one who's going to listen to you and who's not going to judge you, who's not going to make you feel insecure, who's not going to make you feel small. He might correct you, but he corrects you in a loving way. And that's the truest, deepest form of love, right? That he corrects you because he doesn't want you to fail. He doesn't want you to do wrong. And he wants to make you more like him. And I want to be a friend like Jesus. I know that I never will, um, but I strive to be a friend like Jesus. One that people can feel comfortable around me, to open up. One that they feel comfortable showing up at my door and don't care that my house is a mess or that I look like a mess, right? Half the time I do tell my friends like if you're gonna come home, just text me to make sure that I'm not like in the shower or like on the toilet. So that I can open the door for you, right? That's always like one of my really random fears, is that someone's gonna show up at my door and I'm gonna be in the shower or on the toilet and I'm gonna be like, wait. um I've had that happen before. I've had that happen before. Someone came, my son was still a baby and I had just put him down for a nap, and I just finished taking a shower, right? Like it was like when you're a mom with a new baby, like showers are crucial. And someone was knocking on my door and I was like halfway done with my shower. So I'm like quickly, trying to rinse off and dry myself and put on some clothes, and they just keep knocking and knocking and knocking and knocking. And I will admit, I did not answer the door in the most kindest way. I literally opened the door and I was like, I just put my newborn down for a nap and I was taking a shower. Like, how can I help you? And at that point, they were like, oh, I'm sorry, And I'm like, yeah, like you were literally knocking on the door every 5 seconds. Like, I wasn't the kindest. Lord Jesus, please forgive me for not being the kindest person at that moment. But it's just I want to be able to have friends who will come in to my home and not care what my house looks like and not care anything. I certainly don't care. If I walk into your home and your house is not up to your standards, I'm not going to say a mess, but not up to your standards, I don't care because I'm not there to see your home. I'm not there to spend time with your home. I'm there to see you and spend time with you. I don't care if you're still in your pajamas. I don't care if you haven't showered for days. I might not like hug you, but like I truly don't care because if I am calling you or coming to your home, it's because I need a friend. I don't need a clean house. I don't need you to smell good. um, I just need you. I need you as a friend. And I think that it's time that we learn to stop overcomplicating things. Stop trying to be the perfect person or give the perfect personality or persona that you think that people are going to like or enjoy, or even give the perfect home, right? Or the perfect outfit, the perfect this or the perfect that, because people don't want perfect. People want real, and people want openness, and people want vulnerability. I've read these 2 books on how to make friends, none of them being Christian based, and me really not getting much information out of them. But then I read that one book being Christian based, where she said, just be vulnerable, right? And I've heard this millions of times from other older mentors that I have had, where it's like, you just gotta be vulnerable. You just gotta be vulnerable. And being vulnerable is not fun, right? Um, Being vulnerable at some points can give other people access to hurt you, right? But at the end of the day, those who are meant to be in your life will stay in your life despite of any information or any openness that you might give them that you might feel judged for. They won't judge you, but they will guide you in the right direction. And to be honest, as I'm I'm like maybe 40% done with this book, and I'm like ready to kind of kick it to the curb, but I'm not, because I'm committed and I'm going to finish the book. Because I'm just weird that way, or wired that way, I guess. So I'm going to finish it because I want to see what this like book concludes to. But honestly, all of these like little tactics like seem a little bit like manipulative to me. Like looking at someone a certain way, um having them talk about, like, the one chapter that I just read. I was at the gym and I was reading it, and it was saying how like, don't be too quick to say me too, right? So like if someone's telling a story about maybe somewhere that they went and you've been there too, right? Don't be like, oh, I've been there too, and then like that way they just end their conversation. It was like saying how let them finish their story and let them be excited about it, and then in the end introduce like, oh yeah, I've been there also, right? um I feel that that's, I don't know, like a little disingenuous, like a little manipulative. I would be a little upset if like I was going on and on and on and on about something, and then someone was like, "Oh yeah," like if I was going on and on about, I don't know, like tennis, right? I don't know anything about tennis, but if I was going on and on about how I started playing tennis and I loved it and I got my shoes here and my racket there and I'm working on my swing, swerve, I don't know what it's called. And then once I'm done talking about it, they're like, "Oh yeah, I competitively play tennis at my country club," right? I would be like, "Oh," like I'd be like, "Okay, well, I don't really want to be your friend." You know what I'm saying? I don't know. Maybe that's just me. It just, these little tactics just seem a little like manipulative. So maybe I'll read the book with intentions of like what not to do when talking to people. Um, don't be manipulative. Just let people be themselves and you be yourself. And I feel that the more that you are yourself and the more that you are who Christ made you to be, the more drawn people will be to you. And I want to expel so much love for others that they ask me, Like, why are you so happy? Or why are you always so joyful? I constantly keep hearing stories of people that has happened to, where they're just like, have non-believers come up to them and be like, why are you always so happy? Or like, why are you always so joyful? Or why are you never worried or afraid or anything, right? And then it gives them the opportunity to be like, well, do you know Jesus, right? I've never had that happen to me, but I pray that my personality and my vibe, I guess, my energy, I don't know, that's not the right word. Sorry, but you know, I just I pray that people see me and be like, "Man, that girl is full of love and joy. Where does she get that from?" And I know that I'm not there. I know that I still have a lot of work to do, but that is my prayer. And honestly, that is my prayer for anyone here. That you just expel so much love that people want to know, where is that love coming from? Where is that joy coming from? Where is that peace coming from? I pray that, the Lord can show us in what ways we're not willing to open up, in what ways we're not willing to be vulnerable, that are putting a roadblock to that. Because I know that for me, like, I'm still not comfortable speaking up in public. I'm still not comfortable, um, opening up basically. And the Lord has been putting opportunities in front of me, and as anxious and as scared as it makes me, I am taking them. And I'm so grateful that the Lord loves me so much to put me in these uncomfortable situations, because he doesn't want us to be comfortable, but he wants us to know that he is with us when we feel uncomfortable. So my prayer is that we just feel peace in that uncomfortability, that we feel the Lord's presence when we're uncomfortable, and that he's not going to leave us when we're feeling that way, because he is always with us. And today I am learning to let go of my fear of public speaking. And today I'm learning to let go of my fear of judgment of others. I'm learning to let go of me feeling the need to just be this perfect person, because I will never be this perfect person. But I want to direct people to the one who is, because I am a new creation.